The clock broke. Lee Jun-hyuk stepped back. The old wooden shelf inside the repair shop had finally given way under the weight, tipping sideways and sending every clock crashing to the floor. Glass shattered in waves. Dust burst outward in all directions. He closed his eyes and opened them. Clocks covered the entire floor. Wall clocks, wristwatches, desk clocks, things in wooden frames, things in leather cases. Glass lay scattered from one wall to the other. He stood still for a moment looking at it. His father's 40 years, all at once on the floor. He knelt and began picking them up one by one. None of them were running. Every single one had stopped. Some had stopped long ago. Some had stopped just now hitting the ground. He sorted through them and moved them aside. Then he lifted one desk clock and his hands went still. The weight was wrong. It was far heavier than other clocks the same size. Something extra was inside. He turned it over slowly. Nothing unusual on the surface. The case was old and thick with dust. A crack ran across the face glass. Both hands pointed to 12. No way to know if it was noon or midnight. Just stopped there. He turned it over. 2 screws on the back. He picked up a screwdriver from the workbench. He unfastened the screws and removed the backing plate. Paper came out. Photographs. 3 of them, folded over and pressed flat to fit inside the clock casing. He unfolded each one carefully. Old photographs, worn at the corners, yellowed throughout. One had a torn upper edge. Another had its entire right half cut cleanly away. A half photograph. The remaining half showed a family standing in a courtyard. A woman, a man, and 2 young children. The children looked to be 5 or 6 years old, with the right half missing. It was impossible to know the full size of the family. Someone else had been standing in the cutaway portion. Jun-hyuk brought the photographs toward the candle. The shop was already dark. Power had gone out in the early afternoon. He had lit a candle before starting work. In the candlelight he studied the faces closely. Not his father, not his mother, people he had never seen. Then his eyes stopped on one of the 2 children. There was a small mark beneath the child's left cheek. Jun-hyuk raised his left hand and touched the spot below his own left cheek. His own mark was there. It had been there since he was born. The position matched exactly. He tilted the candle slightly closer. He looked at the child's face in full. The resemblance was not slight. It was strong. The shape of the nose, the distance between the eyes, the line of the forehead. If someone had told him this was a photograph of himself at the age of 10, he would not have questioned it. But these people were strangers to him. He had never seen them once in his life. It was late March. During the day icicles dripped from the eave. Spring was approaching. But the moment the sun went down the cold returned. There was no heating in the shop. His father's small stove sat in the corner but he had not brought fuel. He worked in his coat. His hands were cold. His fingertips had gone numb. Holding them near the candle gave a few seconds of warmth before the cold came back. Wind moved against the window from outside. A thin sound came through the gap in the old glass frame. His father had kept this shop from the age of 25 until 65. 40 years. Cracks in the walls. A water stain on the ceiling from an old leak. The wooden floor shifted underfoot. But inside this place his father had repaired clocks every single day. His father had died 2 weeks ago. He had been ill for a long time. It started the previous winter. First it was back pain. The doctor said rest would help. It did not. By summer he could barely stand. From autumn he remained in bed. Jun-hyuk came to the shop every evening all winter. He opened and closed it in his father's place. When customers brought in clocks, he accepted them and carried them to his father. His father examined them lying down. His eyes had grown dim. His hands sometimes trembled, but the hands that worked on clocks were steady until nearly the end. 40 years lived in those fingertips. Then in early March those hands stopped too. Jun-hyuk was there. His mother was there. His father closed his eyes without a word. Exactly as he had lived. Jun-hyuk had begun clearing the shop after the funeral. His mother had plans for the space. He had volunteered to handle it. This was the 4th day. 40 years of his father's accumulation. Boxes of old parts, springs and gears and screws sorted in a system only his father had understood. Small numbered drawers covering an entire wall. He could not read the system. He just opened each one and decided keep or discard. Most things had to go. It felt strange at times, clearing in 4 days. What his father had built across 40 years. But it was what had to be done. He turned the photographs over one by one. First, nothing on the back. Second, nothing. He flipped the half-family photograph. There was writing. The ink had bled, but it was readable. His father's handwriting. His father always lifted the end of certain strokes slightly upward when he wrote. That habit was here too. Ri Gyeong-cheol's household. Do not forget. Below it, an address. A village 20 minutes north by bus. Jun-hyuk read the words repeatedly. Ri Gyeong-cheol. He had never heard that name. Not from his father, not from his mother. Do not forget. His father had considered this family something that must not be forgotten. He had put the photograph inside a stopped clock. Inside an old clock no one was likely to open. The child in the photograph looked like Jun-hyuk. Why had his father said nothing? Not once. Why had this name never been spoken aloud? He put the photographs in an envelope. He kept the clock. Work was finished for the day. Early the next morning he left the house and caught a bus north. The fields through the window were patchy with melting snow. Not fully spring yet. 20 minutes later he got off and walked following the address. A narrow alley between low crumbling walls. Courtyard gates low and weathered. The last snow of winter still frozen in the shaded corners. He found the house. Small, old. He knocked quietly on the gate. From inside came footsteps. Slow. Weight moved with care. The gate opened. A woman in her 70s. White hair neatly combed back. Her back was strongly curved with age. Small, deep-set eyes. The moment she saw Jun-hyuk, those eyes went wide. Her lips parted slightly. One hand found the gate post. She said quietly, Gyeong-cheol. Jun-hyuk said, my name is Lee Jun-hyuk. Lee Myung-soo is my father. Tears moved slowly into the woman's eyes. I'm sorry. You look so much like my Gyeong-cheol. I was startled. He followed her inside. A small, quiet room. Few pieces of furniture. A framed photograph hung on the wall. The man in the photo looked like Jun-hyuk. He appeared to be in his 20s. His expression was serious. The woman brought tea. Her hands trembled slightly. They sat across from each other. She began. Gyeong-cheol's father and your father worked together in the same repair shop. This was about 25 years ago. Gyeong-cheol's father was killed in an accident at work. Your father was there when it happened. Gyeong-cheol was 12 at the time. There was a younger daughter as well. After my husband was gone, I did not know how to go on. It was winter. The room was cold. The children were young. Jun-hyuk listened without speaking. She continued. Starting from that time, rice came every month. No name on the delivery. At first I had no idea who was sending it. I had no choice but to accept it. The children were young. It kept coming year after year. Once I followed the delivery person from a distance. He stopped in front of a clock repair shop in your village. Your father was inside. I intended to go in and thank him. But I could not make myself move. I don't know why. I simply could not go in. I turned around and went home. I kept accepting the deliveries after that. When Gyeong-cheol was grown and his sister had married, I finally planned to go and express my gratitude. Then word reached me that your father was very ill. I delayed again. And now it has come to this. She placed her hands quietly in her lap. Jun-hyuk removed the photographs from his coat pocket. He laid them on the table between them. These came from inside an old clock in my father's shop. I believe they belong to you. The woman picked up the half photograph. She looked at it for a long time. Tears fell. This was here all along. This was taken when my husband was still alive. I had not known where it was for years. Your father had it. Jun-hyuk said I did not know my father had these. He never said a word about any of this. Not once. She said he was there when the accident happened. I think he carried that with him his whole life. He could not say it in words. So he did this instead. He kept the photograph. He sent rice every month. Without telling anyone. The two of them were quiet for a long time. The photograph of Gyeong-cheol watched from the wall. A face that looked like Jun-hyuk's. Jun-hyuk stood to leave. Please tell Gyeong-cheol about my father. He passed away 2 weeks ago. The woman brought her hands together. She bowed her head deeply, and held it there. Thank you, and thank your father. Jun-hyuk walked out into the alley. The melted snow made the path soft underfoot. March wind moved through the lane. If this story stayed with you, the next one begins here too.